Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to take two $8 pieces of pine boards and turn it into this beautiful rustic hallway bench. These are very easy to make, great gifts, big sellers. So stick around, I'll show you how to do it. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button because I'll be doing more projects just like this. The first thing I'm going to do is take these 6-foot pieces over to the miter station. I like to cut off the edges first to make sure they're nice and square before I start measuring. My first piece is going to be the top, and that's 40 inches long. With the leftover piece, I've got enough to take off a 19-inch piece for my leg before moving on to the second piece. Then on my second piece, I'm going to cut a 36-inch piece and another 19-inch piece. I'll then take my 36-inch piece over to the table saw and I'm going to cut two 3-inch strips. The 3-inch wide pieces are going to be for my rails, and I'm going to give them a little character by adding a miter to the corners. I'm going to take my square and measure up 2 inches on each side. Then I'm going to move over to my miter station and put it on a 45-degree cut. I'll line my blade up with that mark and just cut a section away. This gives it a nice rustic look. I'll repeat this for all 4 sides. Now to notch out my legs. This board's 9 inches wide, so I'm going to do 3-inch legs, and that'll give me a nice equal 3-inch void in the middle. So I'll measure in 3 inches on each side. Then I'm just going to eyeball what I think looks nice, which is 5 inches in this case. So I'll make a 5-inch mark on each side. That way I can use my straight edge to go across. Once I do that, I'm going to measure in to find the center. And then I'll just double check that on the other side, make sure I've got it. Once I got center, again, I'll take my straight edge and I'm going to line up my mark on the bottom to the center mark on top and just trace it out. This is going to be where I cut. With both legs traced out, I grab my jigsaw and just follow the lines. Now, the jigsaw is not the most accurate tool, but this is a rustic looking bench, so it kind of adds a little character. So at least that's my excuse for not having perfectly straight lines. I'm going to use my pocket jig to make some pocket holes for the legs. Don't worry, if you don't have one of these, you can just screw down from the top and hide it with dowels. I'll actually show you how to do that later in the video. But I really enjoy using this pocket jig. It makes things a lot easier. I just eyeballed where I thought 3 pocket holes would make sense, and honestly I got lucky because I changed the layout of this later on in the video, so watch ahead before you start this. With the legs done, I move on to the rails, and I'm going to put 4 pocket holes in here, and I'm going to stay back probably about 3.5 inches, just so it doesn't interfere with my legs later on. With all the pieces cut and the pocket holes in, I'm going to sand everything individually. It's just so much easier than assembling. But like I said, I changed my mind. So what I did was I kind of dry fit everything, and I realized the rails that I made are actually going to stick out from the top of the bench. So if you look down at it, you'd see a seam all the way across, and I didn't like that. So I decided I'm going to notch out for these rails and recess them. So to do that, I just cut a piece of scrap wood at 3 inches wide, just like the rails, and used it as a template to mark out where I was going to notch it. Once I notched it, I dry fit the rails and gave it a sand. I should mention that I only sanded everything with 150 grit too, because I'm going to use fire. So you might have noticed that my bench top is 40 inches long and my rails are only 36. That's because I want the bench top to overhang the rails by 2 inches on each side. I also want my rails to overhang the legs by 3 inches. So I'm going to measure in 5 inches and mark a line to where I want my legs to sit. I like to use a scrap piece of plywood or MDF, anything with a straight edge. Clamp it down to the board, and this just gives me a nice backstop to put my piece onto and stop it from moving around. I'm going to put a little bead of glue across it, and then I'm going to grab my scrap piece of 3-inch board and make sure that all my edges stay nice and flush. I'll put one screw in and then I'll double check both edges again, make sure they stay flush before putting the other two screws in. Once both legs are on, I'm going to lay it on its side and prepare to install the rails. For this, I'm just going to put some glue along the notches I made earlier, grab my rail, gently tap it into place. Once I have it into place, I'm going to grab my square and make sure it's even from both sides. In this case, 2 inches. Once the rail's lined up, I flip it over and get ready to put the pocket screws in. As you can see here, I mismeasured and I've hidden one pocket screw right in behind the leg. The other one is just barely visible, but it's workable. I'm going to be putting dowels in as well for extra strength, so I don't even give a care. Not one care at all. It's going to be nice and strong. I've put glue across the top of the rail. I've got 3 pocket screws, and I'm going to have 2 dowels on each side of the legs. For my dowels, I'm going to line up the center of the legs and just make 2 marks. It doesn't really matter where, as long as I repeat it on all 4 sides. Oh look, my watch is reminding me that I need to get chicken food. But I'm no procrastinator. I did that this morning. So now, all I have to focus on are these dowels. I use my countersink bit, that way I can pre-drill the legs in behind the rails. Then I switch to my 3/8 drill bit, which is the size of the dowel I'm going to use to plug the holes. I grab my plug making bit. I got 3 of these off Amazon, I think years ago. Very inexpensive. Every time I tend to make plugs, I make extra and just throw them in a bin for later. Before putting the screw in, I fill the hole with glue. This just adds a lot of extra strength and no, I just forgot where I was at and I filled the holes with glue before I put the screws in. I normally don't do that. So I just carried on and then drove the screws through the glue and then added more glue for the dowels since I wasted all the glue. With everything double glued, I just pressed the dowels in, grab my trusty hammer and just tap it, tap it. Tap, tap, tap. Once dry, I just cut them flush and give them a quick sand. And now for the fun part, fire. I just grab a regular propane torch and I start burning the wood. I hold it close for darker, further away for lighter. I just play with it a bit. And don't touch the spot you just burnt. That's an hour waiting to happen. Just continue on until you get a somewhat even coat over everything and you're happy with the look of it. I can't tell you how many people admire the burnt look. So this should sell pretty quick for you. Thanks for watching. Please take a second and just hit that like and or subscribe button. Really makes a big difference for a small channel like mine. Have a good one.